Today on the 1% podcast, we are honored to have Braiden Shaw joining us. Braiden is the co-founder of Fulcrum Home Loans. In addition to that, he's founded and purchased a number of other businesses or become a partner in a number of different businesses. So we'll talk to him about his vertical integration. Braiden produces videos all over social media, has a massive following where he gives away information about financial advice. We're going to talk to him about that and the following that he's created. We're really excited to have Braiden Shaw on the podcast with us today. How did that start and how did that work for you? You decided one day, hey, I'm going to start posting. I'm going to post every day and I'm going to let this grow organically. Did you already have a team in place? Did you hire someone? I talked about maybe some of the structures of things that either you've been a part of or that you've been able to see, or ways that people that may not have cash to go buy into a business, what are ways that they can, a little bit of maybe what you found, what you do, routine, structure, things that you put into your life that you feel like put you in a position to make those right decisions. Braiden, thanks for coming on. I'm glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right in. I want to start with talking about social media stuff. Getting to know you. A lot of people follow you. You've created an amazing following. Maybe before we get into that, let's back up. So talk to us about your family, where you grew up at, where's home. You're obviously married and have 3 little kids now. Is that right?
Yep.
So you grew up here. Talk to us about that a little bit and about kind of your family circumstances, brothers, sisters, family. What was life like growing up for you?
For sure. So I grew up here in Idaho. I actually grew up in Eagle. Went to Eagle High School. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. And my family, my dad was always in business. And so I feel like that had a lot of influence in what I do now, the way I approach life, think through stuff, all that kind of stuff. But most of my growing up life, he would kind of buy businesses, flip them, and then sell them.
Okay.
And so he'd buy struggling businesses, start businesses, sell them. And then later on in his career, to kind of preserve capital and be smart, he started just brokering. So he was a consultant with broker.
Okay.
But I grew up in a household that talked business often.
Yep.
And so it shaped the way I think about money. It shaped the way what I did. I ended up going to BYU, school in Utah, and played basketball for them.
Okay. For those of you that don't know, Braiden's like 6'10". So yeah, he was.
You only see him with the
tall.
camera.
Yeah.
I always like run into people in Costco and stuff. They're like, holy cow, I didn't realize how tall you guys are. Yeah, camera hides it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I played ball at BYU, graduated in finance, and then as soon as I could, I got back. Brought my wife back here. And now
Where's your wife from?
She's from the other side of the state. So
Okay.
Ryrie.
Oh yeah.
Rexburg.
Oh yeah.
Slowly get bigger and bigger.
If you're from Idaho, you know it. So yeah.
And so it wasn't too much of a debate. It's pretty cold over there and windy out there.
For sure.
So I won on the wind.
My wife's from Blackfoot, so I get it.
Same
Yeah.
thing.
It's not a hard sell.
Now we have 3 kids. So I've got a 6-year-old boy, a 2-year-old boy, and a brand new girl that was born about a month ago.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you have an incredible story. We find a lot in people that I talk to, I'm sure you probably find it as well, that talking about business, talking about money, understanding the language of business, understanding so many of those things that often get modeled by your parents or by people that have influence on you is something that's almost impossible to replicate, right? Like it's an advantage whether you want to, maybe capture it that way. People often talk about being set up by, did your family give you a bunch of money? Did your parents leave you this or give you that? Did they pay for this or, do that for you? But really, in my opinion, one of the most valuable things that parents can do for their kids is talking about money. It's talking about businesses and creating opportunities for them to become, small entrepreneurs, to be able to think like business owners rather than paying your kids $10 an hour to go do something. You pay them for what they actually achieve rather than on just paying. Maybe talk about that a little bit. Sounds like your parents were very much that way. Your dad is very entrepreneurial. Money was something that you talked about and kind of learned to understand from a young age.
Yeah, I film content like this probably once a month because I am a big believer in this. I feel like I'm not going to act like privilege doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It does. Like, we're just blessed. Grew up in a household that talked about money. But I also believe that you can change the direction of your heritage based on what you teach inside the home. Exactly this. And so, and it's really not these huge monumental things. It's little things like talk about money, make it open dialogue. We talk about everything else. Teach them the way to approach money. Don't be emotional about it. You get a parking ticket, don't freak out over it, and teach them that it's a scarce resource that we need to be emotional about.
Yep.
Like I watched my dad invest and I watched us go through hard times. And I knew when we were going through hard times. I mean, my mom lived the envelope system at times, trying to budget as he had just bought a company and was trying to get through, you know what I mean? And so understanding that it was a resource that we use and deploy. And I still remember growing up, I had 2 baking soda cans. One said savings, one said tithing on it or charity. And I had put 10% of everything I had into the charity tithing category. I put 20% into savings, and I got to take 70% from when I was like 5 years old.
Yep.
And it's those little things that's like, I didn't think that was budgeting, man.
Yeah.
But now it's like you pay yourself first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just little things little tiny lessons that add up inside your kids' lives. And that is what they'll look back. They'll be on a podcast 20 years from now and be like, that's what shaped my money. It's so small and it's so easy to do.
I remember being a little kid and my mom giving my brother and I a checkbook, right? It was a old voided checkbook that she wasn't using.
Yep.
And we would have to write checks to her. I remember being at Fred Meyer. I remember going to Albertsons and having to write checks for things that we wanted. My mom would pay us and then we would write her a check and then we'd have to go, mark it down in the log. And I was probably maybe 7 or 8, maybe 9 years old, when we were doing those kinds of things. And I look back and it's like, it was seemingly a small thing. But I think to your point, those sorts of things have a profound impact when your kids start thinking and understanding, seeing money as a resource, seeing money as an exchange of time and of value. And rather than just something that most people get out of the competition before they ever even get started, right? This idea that, hey, I'm just going to go get a job somewhere. I'm just going to go get paid whatever they're willing to pay me. And then I just kind of mindlessly go through and do what I'm told all the time, rather than seeing your financial future as something that you get to control, something that you get to go invest in yourself and create value. And then the world will pay you for that value that you've created in yourself. Maybe kind of talk about that with your view as you grew up and eventually went to school and gaining a skill set.
I feel like we're kind of forced into trading time for money. And once again, you can teach it to your children, you can learn in school, you can just learn in a podcast like this, but we're conditioned to believe that our time equals money. And I think that's a broken belief.
Yep.
And people always go at billionaires and people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and say there's no way they're worth that. I was like, that's because you equate time to money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, the value they have brought to this world, we buy their stuff.
Yep.
You buy on Amazon, you buy at Walmart, you
use Apple computers, you use
the value of what they've brought. And so when you can start flipping that and start thinking, how do I get more value? Not how do I put more time into my job?
Yep.
Eventually it will start to flip. You'll get in the right position with the right leader that will recognize that and pay you for that.
Yep.
And sometimes it takes job hopping. Sometimes it takes working on the weekends and nights to start a side hustle. Like, it's not easy, but you just have to mentally understand that time does not equal money. And that's a broken way of thinking. And hopefully you're watching this young and can figure that out young, but that's not always the case. I mean, as successful people start at 45, 50, 55 years old.
Yeah.
And you can still get there. You can start.
When did you kind of feel that switch start to happen for you? I mean, I know for myself, even though we talked about money, even though my mom gave me the checkbook at like 7 or 8 years old, even though those were things that we practiced in our life, my parents were very fiscally conservative. We did a lot of those things. Understanding money didn't happen for me really until later, until I became a business owner, really for the most part. I understood creating value. I understood not wanting to trade my time for money and being able to kind of look around. For me, I don't feel like it was a light switch as much as it was kind of a sunrise, so to speak, where it's like a little by little, this became more clear, more apparent to me, being able to see other people. And, we both talked about, in fact, I had this on a podcast last week about learning from counsel or learning from consequence, and being able to look around and to see other people that had things in their life that I wanted, and then being able to see other people whose lives I absolutely did not want. When did that all kind of start to come to fruition for you? When did you start to feel that or did that change start to happen?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a light switch in almost anyone. I think it's going to be a sunrise. I think that's a good analogy. I think I had the wake up call in college sports. I was blessed, cursed, whatever you want to call it, to be almost 7 foot tall. Don't fit in anything, but gave me a life of basketball.
Yeah.
And so I was 18, 19 years old, flying around on private jets with billionaires and literally sitting, rubbing shoulders with them on a daily basis at their home Sunday evening for dinners. If I could go back and actually like utilize those rooms, it'd be very different.
Yeah.
I was stupid and didn't ask the question I should, but it showed me what could be. And it's not that at that time I was like, I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm going to ride around in private jets and live a flashy lifestyle. It's not necessarily what I wanted, but it also showed me like every single person that I was rubbing shoulders with was a business owner in some way.
Yeah.
And so I looked at my dad, I looked at all these people. I never held a job. Like sports now, I was right in the transition of, I feel like sports where like club takes over your life.
Yeah.
Now it's even worse.
I have a 14-year-old son who's neck deep in it.
It's unreal what it is today. But I traveled for the first time as a freshman. I committed my freshman year. And so I've never had a job. Like basketball was my job going through high school and everything. And so I never knew what it was like to have a job. I never had a job. My first interview, I was on the other side of the table hiring a COO. And so I always kind of knew I was going to go that direction. But still to this day, like you always hear people, you never have a big enough vision or your sights aren't high enough. You're not thinking big enough. And every single day that's more and more real.
Yeah.
Like my idea of what could be when I graduated college and was starting Fulcrum Home Loans, like if you would have told me, hey, in 3 years, you'd have 100+ employees and doing tens of millions of revenue, I would have laughed at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the vision is always getting higher and higher. And so it is a sunrise type thing, but it's those people that taught me how to think about money, how to invest, venture capital, private equity, get into large scale real estate, like control your destiny. Don't just chuck it at the wind and hope it happens. Diversification preserves wealth. It doesn't create wealth. Like I just hear all these little sayings.
Yeah.
They didn't mean anything until they meant something.
Yeah.
And then later on, I was like, oh, that's what they meant. Like,
Yep.
Your 401k isn't going to make you a multimillionaire. Like it will preserve it. It's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so same thing. I think I always knew I was going to do business, but I had no idea what that meant until I was actually in it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. What are things that you see that people could start doing right now, whether it's someone who's in college, maybe they're in their first job, they're young in their career, or maybe someone that's 15, 20 years in their career and has not really taken hold of their financial future. Someone that's kind of like, I make money, maybe I invest some into a 401k. I'm just kind of keeping everything in my checking and savings accounts. What should I be doing and how do I get started? Maybe that's a common question that you get asked, but where would you advise people to get started? I mean, they can go onto your YouTube channel, your Instagram account, and you can start watching all these videos, but what would your advice to them be?
Yeah. So, it's hard. You don't really start to deploy capital until you can make money.
Yep.
And that's hard to say out loud.
Yep.
And people will get mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth. You're not going to, cutting out a coffee today is not going to make you a multimillionaire.
No.
You can't really budget your way there. And so so many people will try to stick it all in a penny stock or some meme coin and be like, I'm going to become a millionaire. But they don't want to be told invest in yourself.
Yep.
But honestly, if you got under $10,000 to your net worth, every single dollar should just be pumped back into yourself in some form. And that could look like starting a business, starting a side hustle, investing in courses, or learn how to sell better, or learn how to market better, or like invest in a skill.
Yep.
Because that $1,000 investment will 10x your lifetime earning potential. Yeah. It's the best investment.
You're the best investment you'll ever make.
Oh, 100%. And everyone's like, yeah, but I'm going to go stick it all in Dogecoin or something. Like, okay, that's stupid. You're going to lose it. And so really, until you can get to the point where you're able to put away $500, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 a month sometimes, it's hard to really create wealth. And so the first thing I would do is find a way to make money while you sleep and then invest in that. Side hustle, business, talent, skill, whatever it is. Then once you have money flowing, now we can start opening up accounts, looking at like private equity, venture capital, self-directing your. Now we can start having fun.
Yep.
But you can become financially free by investing $100 a day from 18 to 65. Like the math shows it. I've seen a lot of people doing it. You can do it. And if that's your path, go for it. But that wasn't my path. And I don't think that's most people's path. And I think they should invest in themselves. And we are on the precipice of opportunity right now. Like
Absolutely.
the next 5 years, AI and robotics are going to make us 100x our efficiency inside of the American economy in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And we just entered a technical recession, like right before it. Like, could you,
Yeah.
it's so exciting where
Yeah.
we're at right now for the everyday person. If you're nearing retirement, recessions aren't fun, but for everyone else, you just got everything put on sale before we know everything's going to go parabolic
Yep.
from an efficiency standpoint.
Yep.
So figure out what you want to carve out, invest in yourself, and go make some.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer that AI is going to create a bigger disparity in the wealth gap. It's not going to shrink it, right? Because the people that want to take advantage of the opportunities that are there, and we see that all the time, right? Like the more information's available, certain people consume it, certain people use it, certain people leverage it, and it's just a matter of what side of that are you going to be on, right? Are you going to make it to be something that's going to work for you? Or are you going to go learn the skills and go find ways to adapt and to leverage? Or are you going to be someone that just consumes and gets, further and further behind because of it?
And you run a business. Like every single business owner is looking for those 1 or 2 employees that conceptually understands AI and understands how to implement it into their business. And if you can be that person in any workplace, you are so valuable.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get into your business and actually make it more efficient? How do you cut down on cost? How do you cut down on payroll? How do you implement AI? We all know everyone says it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
But as a business owner, I'm like, how does it change my stuff? And I really don't have the answers.
Yeah.
But I have 1 or 2 employees that are consuming it daily and like, hey, try this, do this, do this. And it's working.
Yeah.
Those 2 are invaluable to me.
Yeah. Well, and you look back how economies change over time. You and I are both from around here. I remember driving around as a high schooler, working as a delivery driver, and seeing homes that would say, starting in the low 100s or starting in the high 90s or 80s or things like that. It was not that long ago that the average home in the valley was right around $100,000 or in the low 100s. And obviously that's not the case here anymore. Everything's far more expensive. We look at the way that people used to work. And one of the major concerns about Idaho, and one of the things that impacted our local economy here, was jobs. And you look at how that's all changed now through the internet, through people being able to work digitally from anywhere. And now all of a sudden people are moving here like crazy because they can, right? Whether they're retired, whether they're able to work remotely. We obviously have a lot of industry that's come here, and companies want to come here and bring jobs because they found out how great it is. But problems change. And if you look at a snapshot of either micro or macro economic issues that were taking place 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they change massively. And so those who are going to succeed the most will be those that can predict what does the future look like and how do I get there before everyone else does.
100%. I completely agree.
Who would have thought, 15 years ago, creating content is what's going to drive all these opportunities to your business. And like, that's just something that people use for fun. That's not something that's really a business medium. But now,
yeah. I mean, even starting out my page, I had no intention of growing my social media. Like, I hate social media. I think I posted one time the previous 12 months before I finally sat down. I was like, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And for the first 3, 4, 6 months, my good high school buddies were making fun of me. We were out on the golf course. Like, you're such an idiot. What are you doing thinking you're an influencer? Like, you will get made fun of.
Yeah.
But joke's on them now. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Influence is today's probably most precious commodity.
Yeah.
The rooms it has gotten me into, the offers it has gotten me into, like on a daily basis, someone will offer me ownership inside a company or opportunity to make money because they want access to it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're young, just start posting. You don't have to go get millions of followers. Like, influence is a very subjective term, but make sure you have a network, you use that network and you grow your influence because it is so valuable.
And really, it's a form of real estate, right? Like, it used to be everyone wanted to be on Main Street because that's where everyone drove up and down. That's where you were getting eyeballs. Then it was television. You had to get people's eyeballs. And now where do eyeballs go? Eyeballs go on social media. And so if you can get eyeballs on your content, that's where you create value. And you've obviously done an amazing job of that. So talk us through that. How did that start and how did that work for you? You decided one day, hey, I'm going to start posting. I'm going to post every day and I'm going to let this grow organically. Did you already have a team in place? Did you hire someone? Like, what did that kind of look like for you? And Was it this intentional plan that, hey, I'm going to post every single day and I've got to come up with new things, whether it's the 5 best college majors or the 5 things to make your kid a millionaire or 3 things you should invest in right now? How'd that kind of all start?
Yeah, so it was kind of the perfect storm of input coming into my life. So Fulcrum got to a point where it grew and I was able to step out of the day-to-day operations and start running it. And so my time.
You grew your skill, you grew your value, you had money coming in, which now allows you to be able to pivot and say, hey, I can go work on other things so that I'm not working in the business. I'm just working on the business.
Yeah. Exactly. And then next I looked out, and the summer that I started, I watched, it's Kylie Jenner. I don't know their names. Kylie Jenner launched a makeup brand and became
For sure.
Conor McGregor watched.
I'm still mad about it, but yeah.
Proper Whiskey, Conor McGregor, billionaire overnight.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, Boost Mobile, billionaire overnight. Rock, like I can go down the list.
Yep.
And I was watching all these people, and they're not going to watch this, but if you do, sorry, stupid business people.
Yeah.
Or so I think.
Yeah.
Have insane influence.
Yep.
And they are just handed opportunities. It sounds terrible because they may be very, very smart. I don't know them at all, but they are given opportunities because of it.
Yep.
And so I'm watching this. I'm like, hey, I love business. I love creating business. If I want to do this, influence seems like the easiest path to get to the scale that I want. So I watched that. And then I think it was Gary Vee had a quote that I heard like that same week. This all happened like in the same week. And he said, post something online, give as much as you can online every single day for 1 year and never ask for a thing. And at the end of that year, you will never need money again. And so I was like, okay, there's that quote.
Profound. Yeah.
And then going through basketball, sitting on these planes with these billionaires and watching how they made money. And I was like, the average person doesn't understand this stuff. Small cap stocks no longer exist.
Yeah.
Now, Wall Street won't tell you that. Companies don't go public at 50 million, 100 million anymore. They go public at 3, 4, 5 billion.
Yeah.
And so the old opportunities, the 80s, 90s, early 2000s to get into these small cap stocks, and then 20, 25, like historically, small cap stocks are known for 20 to 25% returns. That's now venture capital private.
Yep.
It's transitioned to the private markets. And so I'm watching these guys that have money get opportunities to invest in these startup companies to make more money because of the network they have.
Yep.
They're maintaining liquidity through smarter investments inside public markets, but really capitalizing on private markets. Like all this stuff that people watching this, what is he saying right now? And I was like, that is not common knowledge. And so I was like, I love finance. There's information. I hate the normal financial influencer that's flexing on their Lambo trying to sell you something.
Yep.
I want to give for the next 12 months, never ask, and just start posting every single day and see what happens. And so that was kind of the perfect storm. I had a videographer inside my business from my mortgage company. We helped real estate agents like post content and stuff.
Okay.
And so I literally set up my phone and got a $10 mic and clipped it on and just started talking at the camera, and then sent him really bad footage and he'd edit it and make it look better. And then we posted, and nothing really happened for the first number of posts. And I got made fun of and all this kind of stuff. And then I posted like top 10 cars that make it to 100,000, I think. And it got like 10,000. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So that same day I was like, top 10 worst cars. I just leaned into it. And then it just started to go parabolic. And there was a month there, 2 months there where I was getting 10,000 followers.
And when did you start? When was kind of your starting point?
June of 2023. So we're coming up on the 2-year mark.
Wow.
In about 2 months.
Yeah.
Got 1 million followers under a year. And that's where I took a step back and was like, okay, once I hit my year mark, I was like, okay, I went a year. I didn't ask for a single thing. Now what can I do?
Yep.
Now that I have the audience, what can I build?
Yep.
And the last year's been a lot of fun standing it up.
And what have you been able to do from there? What does that look like for you? Obviously, you have your Amplify podcast that you do. You have several different areas that you are involved with now. You went from just doing Fulcrum Home Loans to you've parlayed that into some vertical integrations. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So kind of the thought process was, I think the reason I took the advice of these billionaires is because they were true mentors that weren't trying to push them.
Yeah. They had nothing to gain from
they just
sharing.
Just wanted to help some punk college dude.
Yeah.
And so that's the approach that I take online. Like, I don't want to necessarily sell. I just want to educate.
Yep.
And if people raise their hand because they wanted more information, I want to have the product available for them. That's good quality, will stand the test of time, and a good thing. And so anything that people's money touch, I want to have an opportunity to help them. And so we've been slowly standing it up. The first thing we did was roll out like a how to get out of debt, kind of Dave Ramsey education course community. And then I opened up an investors syndicate. I was like, I just want to get 50 to 100 people that are all accredited, all in a room so that we can use my influence and go create good investments together. That kind of spun off into venture capital. And then I did private equity, then I did real estate, then I did marketing, partnered on financial advising, life insurance, home and auto insurance. And so I just started going down the list of everything monetary, and either starting it or buying into it so that I could be a trusted source online for any.
And those opportunities all really started to roll. You felt like after that 1 year mark when you just give, and you're creating content, building a following, still working your home loan business, and then all of a sudden you're just vertically integrating with these different businesses, whether you start them or whether you get an opportunity to come in.
Yeah. So I had a billionaire reach out to DM me. A billionaire DM'd me and said, hey, do you have any real estate deals on your table? I'm looking for places to place my cap. I was like, this is,
yeah.
You look at me.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, right? You built by sharing content that's substantive and creates value for other people. You created not only a following, but you also created a view and a perception that people trusted you, right? Because you are sharing substantive, valuable, true information with people that they can benefit from. So then it's like, okay, hey, I've grown to trust this guy and I've never even met him before.
100%. And so he calls me, and I have a best friend that played college sports with me that owned a private equity real estate.
Okay.
I knew he was raising. I was in the deal with him. And so I call him like, hey, how much to finish out this raise? He's like $2.5 million. So I call that billionaire. I'm like, hey, I don't, but I'm personally investing in this. Would you like to invest alongside me? I've vetted it. I've had my underwriters look at it. They need $2.5 million. He said, consider it done, and wired the money the next day. 20-minute conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when something clicked on in my brain. And so I went to that real estate syndication company, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a post tomorrow. Every single lead that comes through, I'll just give to you. I'm not asking for a single, but tomorrow night I want to sit down with you and see how valuable this is, and we can.
Yeah.
And so I posted one video. I was like, most of you don't understand who owns these large buildings. Let me break down what a real estate syndication is, how it works. Flooded thousands of leads, overwhelmed them, held this webinar. I think they raised like $3-4 million from it. And the next day they're like, yeah, here's 25% of our company. Yeah. He's like, okay, I've got a recipe.
Yeah.
And so that's how I went about it.
Yeah.
So I'd find a company, I would secret shop them, I'd vet them. I wanted high integrity, really good value, broker oriented, very, very good companies. Once I found them and I personally was involved in it, I do the same thing. I call up their CEO and say, hey, you're going to get flooded with leads.
Yep.
I'm going to do a post.
Here's the evidence that I have that shows that I can do this. And
give first,
then
ask.
Yeah, love it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about structuring businesses, structuring business deals. I think that so many people think that there's only one way to do a business deal, right? It's, hey, Braiden owns a business. For me to come buy into it, I'm convincing him, A, to sell his stock to me, and then B, we've got to negotiate and haggle on a price, and I have to have cash in order to do that. Could not be further from the truth, right? Talk about, in your experience, different ways of structuring deals, things that most people don't know, right? Like, and this is a big part of why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. It's called the 1% Podcast, because what are the things that the top 1% of people in any industry know that most people don't know, right? Like that was one of the biggest intents of how do I take information that I've been fortunate enough to gather along the way and to learn from other people. How do I take that information? How do I go share it with other people? Because you don't learn this in school, right? You don't learn it in college. You don't learn it anywhere else. You learn it from the people that are living it and the people that are doing it, right? And there's a recipe that's repeatable. Talk to us about that. Talk about maybe some of the structures of things that either you've been a part of or that you've been able to see, or ways that people that may not have cash to go buy into a business, what are ways that they can...
Yeah. Let's go. I mean, there's infinite numbers of ways. Like, I think in the consumer world, when you get a loan, it's a very structured loan. You get a mortgage. I own a mortgage company. It's terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
Like they're going to look at every document and it's their terms and they have LTV requirements and credit requirements. When you get into the business world, there is no set way.
Yeah.
There's a million ways we can do this. We can go up to 3 or 4. Like, if I was to buy a business with no capital, probably the first place I would go is find someone that's a boomer, find someone that's looking to retire inside their business.
Yep.
They have been told their businesses are worth nothing.
Yep.
But they're worth something.
Yep.
Promise you they're worth something. And so I would approach someone. My private equity company does home service. This is exactly what we do. We approach roofers, gutters, and garage door
that
are within 3 to 5 years of retirement. and I'll say, hey, you're currently making $200,000 a year. Okay. Let me pay you all $200,000 a year plus X amount. And I'll earn it out over the next 3 to 5 years. It's basically seller financing.
Yep.
You go work in the business, you begin to take over operations, you start to build relationships, you make $50,000 a year, you give them 150, they phase out after that 3 years or whatever, and then you continue to pay them for another 3 to 5 years. And then 3 years in, you own the company 100%, you're making $250,000 a year, and you took a business for free. Yes, you had to pay them, but you were being paid a salary as well.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're asking them to financially carry the note on that, and you're just paying them through the cash flow of the business. The business is producing profits, and you just pass those profits along for 3-5 years. That is probably the easiest, most attainable way for someone without cash to go get it.
And most people don't realize this, but a business is only worth its exit strategy, right? And if your business has no exit strategy, then it really has no worth. And so most people run a business, small businesses. There's 31 million small businesses in America, most of which are family owned. They're the home services type business, some sort of, subcontractor, general contractor, some sort of service that you're paying for, a floral shop or some sort of local business like that. There's 31 million of these small businesses in the United States. More than half of those will go up for sale sometime in the next 10 years, most of which will never actually sell, right? And so for people that maybe hate the career that they're in, they went into, this field because their parents convinced them to, or teachers in school told them to, or they felt like this was a route that they were supposed to go into. They get into their career, they hate it, they're working a 9-to-5 job, they're looking for some other way out. These are the kinds of things that people can take control of what their future looks like without having $200,000 to go throw at a $200,000 business. You can go structure a deal that is carried by the owner, that they don't have an exit strategy. So really they're just going to ride it out for a couple more years until they get ready to hang it up. This business is going to disappear unless someone comes in with some sort of proposal like what you were just stating.
And then you can steal it from every 3 years, find another one and just add it on. Roll-up strategy. Just going to slowly add and make it bigger and bigger. I guarantee there's 200 plumbers in your metropolitan area. Find a new one every 2 to 3 years, pay them out over 3 years, pull it into the business. That's probably the most attainable one. Another one is warrant-based, is what they'll call it inside of larger companies, venture capital. But basically, I want to bring you business, and in return, rather than paying me, I want. And so easiest way to kind of explain this one, I'll take mortgage, for example. It's not legal in mortgage, but hypothetically, you come to me like, hey, I'm going to send you 1,000 mortgages a year. Okay. I don't want to be paid the normal $1 million you'd pay someone that could do that. Instead, pay me $100,000, but every single year I bring you 1,000. I want 10% ownership in the business, called warrant based. And so you work your butt off. It's sweat equity. That's what you're doing. Because as a business owner, you're looking, there's well, that's 1,000 deal that never get. If they don't come, I'm never going to get that. It's a network. It's a resource they have. And so if I'm currently doing 1,000 and they bring me another 1,000 and they only want 10% of my business, as a business owner, sure, go for it. You know what I mean? Win. For you, you're like, sick, I'm getting equity and I really get it.
But you have to have that skill set before you can do something like that, right? You have to have built that credibility, that following, have developed a skill set within yourself. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, best investment you can ever make is in yourself and having a skill set that people value and they're willing to pay for.
Marketing, figure out how to run ads, figure out how to get influence through social media, figure out how to sell direct one.
Learning about some sort of industry, whether it's finance, whether it's selling, whether it's scaling businesses, whatever it is, find some sort of skill set that people are willing to pay for and then learn how to be able to market that. Like I say all the time, you could be the greatest basketball coach in the world, but if you can't convince anyone of that, no one's going to care. You're never going to get an opportunity.
Right. The last one is like a tag along. So you have a very successful business that is very good at fulfillment, and you can say, hey, I want to rely on your fulfillment, but I want to, it's very similar to the warrant thing, but I'm going to build a book underneath you. But when you go to exit, I want to be paid out of one book. And so there's a lot of businesses that will do tag along. And so you don't have to worry about fulfillment. You don't have to worry about the business. 30% of everything goes to them to worry about fulfillment. You keep 70%. And then when they go sell, you're carved out of the book, you get a big equity. And so another easy way to kind of create a business off of someone else's business. And once again, it's the ultimate win-win.
And the same thing holds true in real estate, right? I have a lot of people and friends and acquaintances that work doing real estate. in several different forms. But real estate transactions can take a lot of different forms, right? Like some people want to hang on to the real estate for sentimental value. Maybe they own some sort of farm or something like that. And, well, I just don't want to sell because I want to stay living in this house. That's great. Stay living in the house. We'll carve it out. We'll move this into, 2 different parcels. I'll buy out this other one, maybe do an owner finance on something like that. You can structure things so many different ways to where you can make a transaction possible. But I think a lot of that comes back to understanding what the other person values and then leveraging what skill set or what opportunities you bring to them and being able to find the right deal. And that's not to say that everyone's going to work out. You're going to go knock on a lot of doors. You're going to have a lot of interactions with people either selling a business or selling something that you're wanting to get. And the answer is going to be no. And a lot of people give up. I feel like that was one thing, having served as an LDS missionary in Southern California. I knocked on a lot of doors. I like to talk to a lot of people that ended up saying no, but learning how to be okay with that, learning how to overcome objections, learning how to be told no and move on to the next one, being able to, not shy away from things. I was like, well, I tried posting on social media and I was getting crap from my friends or my family. I tried doing this real estate deal and the whole thing fell through. So it's not worth it. I tried buying this business and we couldn't get it worked out. And, so I'm just going to hang it up and never try again.
The most successful people have failed the most.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. Like, we're taught through school to get something as close to 100% as you can. Like, it's literally the grading system.
For sure.
Every successful entrepreneur will jump off that cliff and figure out how to build a parachute on the way down.
Yep.
Be okay failing, fail as much as you can. The quicker you fail, the quicker you find the way not to do it.
Yeah.
And you're one step closer to figuring out the way to do it. I feel like people are paralyzed by failure. Where the most successful people I've met, completely okay with it. I'm going to jump. I'll build a parachute on the way down. If I don't build it, that sucks, but I figured out how not to do it. I'm going to go figure out how to do it.
And how many people, I think back, course of my career, on how many people have said no to something and eventually came back and said, yeah, right? Or, hey, can we figure something else out? Or can we do this? And sometimes being persistent is the answer to getting there. Sometimes moving on, sometimes telling them, hey, if you ever change your mind, feel free to reach out to me, leaving doors open. It's amazing when you just go do the right thing consistently for a long period of time, how many doors open. But I'm a big believer that consistency is often the biggest thing that separates people that make it from those that don't, right? Had you posted one video and got made fun of by some of your buddies, or 5 videos or 10 videos, it's like, oh, well, I haven't seen any success from this. I've been doing this for 3 months now, every single day, and nothing's coming from it. Like, I'm just going to hang it out. This isn't really worth it, right? It's the consistency of the act being done repeated over a substantial period of time that ends up paying the biggest returns.
I have a Kaizen written on my wall inside my office, and I'm sure my employees hate it. It stands for constant improvement. It's Japanese for constant improvement, because 1% every single day, that constant improvement is what will actually lead. It's not that I'm never satisfied. Yeah, I give them an attaboy. We have fun.
Yeah.
It's that constant pursuit of perfection, but never actually getting there and understanding it, is what brings success in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. And there's a reason all these billionaires will talk about their morning routines or their habits. And it's, they didn't have that necessarily in the grind, but they got there because they're just so obsessed with just constantly getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And eventually, I promise you, if you go 1% a day, you will find success.
Yep.
It may take you 2 years, may take you 5 years, but 1% a day.
Yeah, the aggregation of marginal gains, right? This idea that if you go get better at little things every day for a compounded period of time, eventually those gains aggregate into a massive outcome. So love that. No, appreciate that. Let's talk about decision making. We were shooting a podcast last week, and we were talking about the ability to make good decisions is what people get paid for the most. And we were having a conversation, and I was talking to Jeremiah Dickey, and those that haven't listened to that podcast, said go listen to it. But we were talking about the importance of putting yourself in a position to be able to make good decisions. Jeff Bezos talks about, I get paid to make 2 or 3 really good decisions a day. And at first, when you're starting out your career, you're just in it, right? You're in the grind. You're doing a ton of different things. You're working for your business. You're just, shuffling as much paperwork as you can. You're try to do as many deals as you can. You're working through the demands of daily life. But as you continue to learn, as you continue to grow, making important decisions are really the biggest things that benefit you the most, whether that's hiring people for your business, whether that is deploying capital to certain things. Talk about a little bit of maybe what you found, what you do, routine, structure, things that you put into your life that you feel like put you in a position to make those right decisions, and that compounding effect that looking back over time, making those big decisions have made big influence in your life and your success.
Great question. I'm sitting there like listening to that, like trying to think through, because I feel like there's a lot of it. Completely agree with the statement that the most successful people are just making the biggest decisions.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things. One, I think it's being hyper self-aware and being able to analyze past decisions, both the good and the bad, and not being scared of seeing like, I made this decision, this worked, but these 4 things did it. Next time, and constant analysis inside my brain never shuts off. With that, the constant learning never shuts off. And honestly, drove my wife.
I was literally about to say the same thing. My wife's going to watch this and be like, oh my gosh, like, yeah.
But everyone I talk to that runs a business this way says the same thing. Like, yeah, I will sit down and watch TV with my wife. Like, we'll have TV shows and we'll watch it. Guarantee my laptop's on my lap or my phone's in my hands and I'm on Reddit or I'm doing something like anything that comes into my mind, I just like get obsessive over it. Like, I need to learn that. I need to learn that. I need to learn that. And some of it's stupid. Like, sometimes I'll research how cheap I can get a couch from China just for kicks and giggles and never end up doing it. Like, I'm just going to end up going to some nice store and buying a couch.
But then you start thinking through, like, what kind of margin are they making on this? How they structure this? Could I do something like this? What would be the,
I'm walking to any event, any gala, hallway, Broadway. I'm counting seats up and back, multiplying it out.
What's their gate tonight? How much are they charging? What are they paying?
And so it's just that constant, the desire to learn, not because you have to, but because you want to figure out as much as you can.
Yeah.
Will eventually lead to good decision making. And then the 2 other things I'll do, I hate the mantra of work on your weaknesses to turn them into strengths. I actually don't believe in that. From a personality standpoint, yes, don't go be a person. But from like a workplace pursuit, understand what your top 20% is and just lean into it and become the absolute best at it and figure out how to get rid of the 80% that you shouldn't be doing. Surround yourself with people that are your opposite. Don't hire people that are your identical person because you like hanging out with them, because you like yourself. You got a big ego. Like, figure out how to lean into what you're absolutely best with and surround yourself with people that are outside of that. Because when you're operating at your best state is when you can make the best decisions. And then another kind of weird one that my wife and I use all the time, I'm just rapid firing these, but we have a term, decision fatigue, and we use it often.
Yeah.
It's real. It's very real. And like, once again, early marriage, she grew up in a home where her father was a professor, very successful, but very different lifestyle than we currently live.
Yeah.
And so I'd come home and she'd be like asking me about like what clothes I wanted to wear for the family picture. I'd be like, babe,
I forget
fatigue.
Yeah.
I've made 400 of these today.
Yeah.
I can't make that one.
Yeah.
And she's like, just tell me. And it was hard to communicate.
Yeah.
Now we understand that like, you really do make so many decisions. And even though you're sitting at a desk, those decisions matter. They impact hundreds of people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I wake up every single morning at 5 a.m., work out. I'm a cold plunger. I eat right. I constantly work physically, spiritually, mentally. In the office by 8 o'clock every single day. Like, I live a routine, not because I have to, but because it brings out the best of me so that I can show up for those decisions.
Yeah. No, I love that because, it probably took me 10 years in my career before I really understood that at a high level, because as you were starting a business or growing a business, there are so many demands that come on you, right? Like, you are the sales department, you are the marketing department, you are doing payroll stuff, you're doing hiring people, firing people, structuring deals, working different things in the constant needs and demands of the business. And that decision fatigue is really real. And you don't make the best long-term decisions. You don't make the 10,000-foot decisions when you're standing at 10 inches off the ground, right? You make those 10,000-foot decisions best when you're up at 10,000 feet. And so that often means you have to hire people, you have to trust people, you have to surround yourself with people that have strengths and aptitudes that you don't have, but you have to intentionally pull back. And that can be a hard thing for a lot of people to do, to trust other people, but to also invest in themselves enough to where they're capable of making those decisions. I think that's a mistake a lot of young entrepreneurs make, is that they don't trust enough other people to do those things to where they can put themselves in the situation to say, I made this one decision that made millions of dollars in impact, rather than I'm so busy, working in the business, I never even see ways to work on it.
And the last thing, as you were speaking, that I remember, loved that, and it actually made me think of this: set yourself up monetarily in your personal life and your business life so you can make the right decision, even if it's the hard decision. I feel like oftentimes small business owners will be held hostage by decisions because of the financial position they put themselves in.
100%.
And so preparing from a liquidity standpoint, saving standpoint, make sure you have the reserve set aside for your business, because the last thing you want is an employee who's everyone hates. They're a cancer to the culture, but they're your number one sales.
Yep.
And if you let them go 2 years from now, you will be where you want to be.
Yeah.
But you can't do it this month because
you're held hostage
by them. And that's a very easy example, but there's a lot of,
and people do that in their everyday lives all the time, right? I have friends that have talked about wanting to start a business for years, but their wife's buying like 10 new pairs of shoes a month, right? She wants to buy high-end bags. They want to buy new cars. They want to go on these vacations, and they're spending all of that money that they could have or should have used to get into a business or to invest in themselves. Said, oh, I'm going to do this, but, we just have this thing, or this person, my wife or, my husband or whatever, get on board with this. So many people sacrifice what they want in the long term for what they want in the short term. And really, I think that's one of the biggest differentiators is, are you willing to delay personal gratification? Can you, when you start a business or buy a business or whatever it is, can you hold yourself back from wanting to improve your lifestyle and investing back in your business, investing into yourself, talk about liquidity, being able to invest in opportunities when those come, rather than having said, hey, I made all these other stupid decisions that are preventing me from being able to do that. I think that's one of the biggest things that I notice, that mindset and that disparity between investing your money into yourself versus spending on things that you really don't need and that aren't going to.
Yeah. And we're talking at a super high level, and some people are like not putting the piece. It happens for people that are struggling paycheck to paycheck. Like something blows on your car and you need a repair, and it's $500, and you're like, I just don't have it. I'm going to drive this for another 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the car's dead. You have no car.
Yep.
And now it's a $10,000.
Yep.
It's in every aspect of your life. But when you are not financially set up to make decisions, you make poor decisions.
Yes.
And don't ever over leverage yourself. Don't get in too much debt. Have liquidity. Like, it's very basic Dave Ramsey advice, but it leads to you being in the right headspace to make the right decision at the right time, which once again, compounded, turns miles ahead. But it's those little habits that end up setting the ground so you can make those decisions.
Yes, 100%. Let's talk about, you brought up Dave Ramsey. I was raised in a very Dave Ramsey-esque home, right? Like everything was, if you can't pay cash for it multiple times over, you don't buy it. Everything in a very, very conservative fashion. Debt is so prevalent in our society, whether it's government and politics or whether this is individual consumers. Talk to us about your views on debt, how it can be used, how it can be structured, ways in which it can be used as a tool versus being a noose for people. Maybe talk about some of the ways that you've seen debt be effective for people and maybe the opposite of that.
Yeah. There is good debt and there is bad debt. And there was a news article that compared me to the modern day Dave Ramsey. It's funny because we do teach a lot of the same stuff for people in those beginning stages.
Yeah.
I do think if you're strapped in debt, you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I think that where he's missed today's modern monetary policy is that people can't get ahead without actually using it in some form, so long as it's good debt. So bad debt is consumer debt. If you can't out-invest the debt, it's a bad debt. Okay, no car loan of 12%, boat loan, credit card debt, personal loans. If it is over 10% and you can't beat it at standard stock market, it will be considered bad debt 95% of the time. And so you're either going to be subservient to debt, or you can make money off of debt if you utilize it properly. And so you need to change that idea that all debt's bad and that it paralyzes you.
Yeah.
There is good debt, there is bad debt. Good debt is anything that you can leverage other people's money to make money. If I gave you $1 billion, $1 million at a 0% interest rate, and you didn't have to pay me $1 until the day you died, and then you had to give it back, you'd be an idiot not to take that debt. Go stick it in government bonds, and you'll like $40,000 the rest of your life every single year, and just give the money back. So that's an extreme example. It's a scale, and honestly, everyone's risk appetite is going to be somewhere in the middle. There's a lot of people that if they jumped into my life would be paralyzed by like that. I've co-signed them probably over hundreds of millions of dollars of debt, which is crazy, but I buy a lot of large real estate. And so finding that happy medium of where do I feel comfortable with my debt tolerances where I can do it. With that said, real estate, great place for debt. Business debt, so long as you have liquidity and cash flow needed.
Let's talk about those each individual really quickly. Talk about how investing in real estate can be a safe haven against inflation and is a great safe haven, I don't know, for storing money, even if you need to buy into it using debt.
Yeah. So real estate is honestly a pretty poor investment unless you use debt. Like, let's take a $500,000 home. If you were to pay $500,000 in cash and it goes up 5%, you made $25,000. $25,000 on $500,000 is not a great return. Take that same $500,000 home, but now you put 10% down. So you put down $50,000, goes up the same 5%, that's $25,000. You turn $50,000 into $25,000. That's a phenomenal return.
Yes.
That is leverage.
Yep.
That debt, let's say it's $2,000 a month on your mortgage, and you can rent out that home for $2,500. And so now your mortgage is coverage, cash flowed, and you made 50% on the appreciation of the home, plus there's tax benefits. You get all four inside of real estate.
Yep.
And so real estate is a phenomenal place for debt if you can cash flow it. There's a really dangerous sentiment out there right now that people are like, oh, interest rates are high, I'll refinance it. I'm not cash flowing now.
Yep.
Never walk into an investment where you're not. Cash is king, okay?
Yep.
Cash flow every single investment. Don't float it. But so long as you're cash flowing real estate and you have good debt, people have become billionaires off of debt.
Let's talk about refinancing really quickly. That's a term that you hear a lot with people saying, hey, buy it now, refi it later. What are the pros and the cons to someone buying real estate right now? Maybe they speculate that, hey, buy right now, even though interest rates may be higher, you can always refinance in the future. What are the pros and what would be the cons to structuring deals like that? Every real estate agent in the world is posing like, hey, just buy it and then refi it later, right? Yeah.
I actually think that there's two ways of thinking on this: your personal world and your investing world. In my investing world, I am a pessimist, doomsdayer, and I run it in 2008, okay? I'm going to assume that I'm never going to be able to refinance. If I'm not cash flowing today, I'm not getting into the investment. Yeah, if I refinance, my investment just gets better, but I will walk away from any investment that I can't cash flow, and I'm never going to bank on a refinance. So from an investment standpoint, I hate the saying.
Yep.
From a personal home standpoint, to me, your personal home is actually a liability, not an asset in most cases.
Yep.
It will grow your net worth. I do think you should do it. It gets you into the school systems. It builds a home. Like, I can argue.
Have a sense of community, structure for your kids.
I've owned a home since the day I left college. I'm a proponent of it, but I don't think it should be viewed as an asset mentally. From that perspective, I would never overextend myself inside my home. Keep it under 30% of your gross income. And so long as that is your personal residence and you can afford it, then I would jump in, because homes are flying. And if you don't become a homeowner today, you're probably never going to. And so if you're pushing 29, 30% of your gross income, I would get in and hope that I can refinance and get it down to 25.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that mantra inside your personal, so long as you're not using it to overextend yourself.
Let's talk about that for a minute with where you see the housing market going in the future. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, obviously the three largest corporations, which are the largest shareholders of one another, essentially the largest corporation in the world. on pace to own roughly 60% of the real estate in America in the next 5 years. What do you see happening in the future with the real estate market, with this idea that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it? Talk about that in terms, I mean, you have kids, I have kids, right? This idea that, even 5-6 years ago, what $1 million home in Boise, Idaho looked like versus what $1 million home looks like today. And this idea that, hey, in 15 years, when your kids, get old enough to where they're looking at to start buying homes, 15, 20 years, the idea of $5 million houses for what we maybe see today is a $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 home. Talk about that and what your view long-term is on potential real estate investments, and buying a home now versus waiting for some time in the future.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts here. One, I think you nailed it. I think AI and automation is going to make the wealth gap bigger.
Yeah.
And so we are seeing, it's already happened with the internet, but it's just going to further. And so more and more people are going to fall more and more out of reach of home ownership. And so if you're in that bottom 50% is what I'm going to call it, and you can afford now, that's why I'm saying buy now.
Yep.
Because if you do go on that side, hopefully you don't, hopefully you apply yourself and invest yourself and you're not, but if you do and you own a home, that alone is going to pull you back up to midline and allow you to own a home. And so I think that wealth gap is going to create home ownership no longer being American attainable for the majority of people. It's already that way in major metropolitan. Yeah, you go to LA, you go to Seattle, you go to New York, you go to Boston, the average family is not buying a home.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to continue to spread out. The other side of that coin, though, surprisingly, is I actually think there's going to be some automation inside of home building that's going to bring down the cost of homes simultaneously. And so I'm saying these in correspondence with each other, where people will be priced out, they'll never be able to buy. But I actually don't think homes are going to keep up with what they've done the last 10 years, the next 20.
Okay.
From a percentage basis.
Okay.
I still think they'll price people out, but you are starting to see 3D printed homes. Now, is that the answer? No. Like, those cement homes are not the answer, but we're trying.
Yeah.
There was a church building in Colorado, Temple, and the church had it built completely off-site in Illinois, shipped over, and it was a modular build. They just popped up the walls. All the electrical and plumbing was already in there, and I think they assembled it in under 90 days or something like that. And so there are these new forms of building that are being tried, and if we can nail one of those, I actually see that helping.
Sure.
Overall, people are going to be priced out. The wealth gap's going to get bigger. But I actually think that some automation is going to come to home ownership, where we may be able to pop up tiny homes or modular homes or something to find a place for people. It's not going to be $1 million homes.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have 800,000, 1,200 square foot homes that we could pop up pretty quickly for fairly inexpensive.
And I don't know to what extent you study this, but population rates decline being an existential threat, not only to real estate, in my opinion, to humanity as well. But maybe talk about that potential impact on the real estate market over the next 20, 25 years of what that looks like. Because if all of a sudden, your population decreases by 25 to 30%, basically 25 to 30% of your existing real estate will be vacated. And obviously that has an existential impact.
Yep. Just another one. I've played this game in my head a million times because I own a lot of real estate. You go to South Korea and they're in turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah. Entire cities closed, people vacated out. Yeah.
It's happening.
China, same thing.
Yeah. America's not there yet, and it takes a while to get there. Everyone says the boomers were the biggest generation. That's not true. Yeah. They were the biggest
at the time,
but every generation since has continued to outpace them.
Yeah. Doesn't mean as a percentage, but yeah.
Yeah, we're just about there. It would not surprise me in the next 5 or 10 years if we technically had a declining population rate. But for that to actually hit a home ownership takes 30 years, 40 years. And so I think real estate is solid for the next 20, 30, 40 years from a population standpoint. But 100 years, I think we're going to have legitimate issues.
Yeah. No, I think that's a compelling, interesting topic that we could probably almost do like an entire podcast episode just talking about that. So let's talk as we finalize out here. If you were giving advice, someone came to you and said, "Hey, Braiden, I want to take control of my financial future. I make a good income, maybe I'm making a couple $100,000 a year, whatever, working in this. Where should I look to start deploying capital? I've invested in myself. I have a good career going. I'm making a comfortable amount. I have money going into a 401k. Where should I be looking to deploy capital? What would be steps that you would recommend to me that would be the next ones to take where I'm at?
Yeah. So, yep, you nailed it. Assuming all of that, out of debt, have a decent survival fund, actually starting to deploy capital. I think everyone should have the same 5 accounts is where you should start. So your retirement account, 401k, IRA. I think you should put 3 to 5% of your income there. Cryptocurrency account. I think everyone should put 1 to 2% in cryptocurrency.
Do you have a cryptocurrency that you prefer over any others?
Bitcoin is all I'm in. That's the only one that I know is going to be here in 20 years. Don't put so much in that if you lost it, it hurts, but put enough in where if it does what it says it can do, it has the power to transform your life.
Which is a good strategy in anything that you're investing in, right? Like if you can't afford to lose it, then it's probably not a good place to put it.
And that's why I tell
if you don't understand it.
1 or 2%. And then we would go into a brokerage account and let's go HSA. So I actually think HSA is one of the best accounts out there. And a health savings account, it's a triple threat. I would put some into that. Then I'd go into a brokerage account and it would be a waterfall structure. So it'd be like 401k, 3 to 5 until it fills over, then Bitcoin, then I'd go HSA, and then everything just dumps into the brokerage account.
Okay.
I do that every single year, and that brokerage account is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger because you're not putting that much in your 401k. Everyone relies on it way too heavy. Like 3% of your income, that's it. What ends up happening is you get more and more in that brokerage account, and that becomes the pool that you get to go play with. And so once you have $50,000 or $100,000 in that brokerage account, that's when you go deploy $20,000 into a real estate deal, or $50,000 into this, or $10,000 into this, and go start getting access to private market deals. So I think you need to build liquidity in the public markets. It's going to take you 5 years. Dump everything else into a brokerage account. That's going to be your pooling mechanism. And then from the brokerage account, you start deploying out. And then, get into public market or private markets as soon as you can. Being smart, be educated. Don't just jump into a stupid one that your brother said is going to go somewhere, but get into the right investor network where you can start finding those deals. And that's how wealth's created, in my opinion.
Love it. Last question. I love asking this to people from a personal standpoint. Talk to us about one of the most difficult, life-changing experiences that you ever had. I ask this to virtually every person I interview. Tell me what's the hardest thing you've ever been through in your life and how'd you get through it? Maybe if it's not particularly the hardest that you feel comfortable sharing, but what's one of the most difficult things that you've gone through in your life, and how'd you feel like you got through it? What were the decisions you made to get through it? And then how did that impact you on the other side?
It's a great question. Going to take a hard left turn out of business, but my wife and I have always wanted to have a big family and always struggled to have kids. And so we went through a lot of stuff there. First kid was natural. Second one was IVF. Third one was surrogacy. And we had I think we had 13 miscarriages throughout that journey. And so going through that honestly was not as hard as me as it was on my wife. But it was very difficult to walk my wife through that. But on the opposite side of that, it brought me an appreciation for stuff outside of business and money because I was getting sucked in pretty quick. Every single person on their deathbed never wishes that they worked harder. And so I think as a society, if I could summarize that whole entire experience and the decisions we went through, and there's a religious aspect to some of this, so with IVF and surrogacy, and there's social, and there's adoption and foster care, and we went down every single path. But society as a whole, society recognizes singular greatness too much. We celebrate the athlete. We celebrate the dad. We celebrate the businessman. We celebrate whatever it is. And I think as a society, we need to start celebrating holistic greatness, because too many people will lose their families on the way to success. Or will lose their faith on the way to success, or will lose whatever it is. And I think going through that with my wife re-emphasized that for me, that I don't want to just be known as someone that runs a cool social media page or has a bunch of businesses or was at one point a college athlete. I want to be a mentor to people that recognize holistic greatness. And I think as a society, we need to celebrate that more because it's healthier and gets us to focus on the right things.
Love that. Jesus said, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? Right? And keeping perspective of what matters the most to you, your principles and values and things that guide you and the decisions that you make and what matters most. So appreciate you sharing that, because I know
For sure.
a person.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that with us and coming on with us today. Every really amazing, really interesting person I've ever met in my life has been through really, really hard things. And while I would have never wished any of the difficult things that I've been through in my life, I would have never wished them on anyone else, and certainly myself. It's going through those trials, it's going through those things that help bring you out of the other side a better person, more compassionate, empathetic person, and it really helps you to find balance in your life. I know that some people have differing views on what balance looks like, or even if balance is possible. Well, what is that to you, and what have you found to be able to find balance in your life? You talked a little bit about your routine and waking up in the morning and, doing your cold plunge, getting your workout in, taking care of your body. What does that look like for you with balancing all these demands that you have through your different businesses, things you're involved with, and being able to, at some level, find balance with being a husband, being a father, and being all these other things? Because I'm a firm believer that you are more than just what you are professionally, right? Like, you're more than just the person that goes and earns a living or influences on social media. Maybe talk about that.
Yeah, two things here. So the first one, balance is going to change in different phases of your life. And so long as you have communication with your spouse and with those around you, that's okay. It's unspoken expectations that will end up tearing you apart. And so understand that there's phases and that balance is going to change. The way that it was articulated to me one time that I've always thought about is, imagine a wheel and all the spokes are different areas of your life that you want to have balance in. And what I really struggled with at the beginning was absolute balance. And so I'd started to say, I need to put the same effort into my business as I do being a husband, as I do my kids, as I do my faith, as I do fitness. That's not possible, and it never will be possible. And so every 6 months, every year, I look at my wheel and I decide, what is a full spoke inside of my business this year? What's a full spoke inside of my faith? What's a full spoke inside of my fitness? And it's going to change. But one year, fitness might be every single day I want to lift for an hour. The next year, it might be I'll run a marathon, so we're going to run 4 times a week, 20 miles. Faith might be opening up the Bible for 10 minutes a day. Another time in my faith, if I'm serving inside my church, it might be 4 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those spokes are going to change, but set those and stick to them. And then if you're fulfilling that, then I consider that balance, because I've communicated to myself, I've communicated to God, and I've communicated to my wife, and we're all going to hold each other accountable. And that's the balance I'm going to do. And so the idea that I'm going to spend 5 hours a day with my kids every single day during certain phases of life is just not possible.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to go a day without spending an hour with them, because that to me is balance at this phase of my life or that phase. You know what I mean? And I think clear communication and understanding that absolute balance is never possible. But then readjusting what balance looks like on a regular basis so that you find fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think going hand in hand with that is being intentional about the life that you want to create. We've always been talking primarily about finances and what that looks like. You were very intentional about your social media work and growing a network, but maybe talk to us a little bit about being intentional in your life and finding outcomes you want. I know for me, I had this very clear vision in my life that I wanted to be a dad, and that I wanted to be the best dad in the world, right? Whatever that meant, like, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone that my kids look to, and like, my legacy is not the money I've made, the businesses I've built, or anything else that I've done. It's not what other people think of me. It's, do my kids think I'm a good dad, right? Like, do they look back and is it not, hey, I'm afraid to talk to my dad, versus, hey, I'll call my dad, he'll have the right answer, and like, I can lean into him, I can talk to him, and I want to be their best friend their whole life, right? Like, that was important to me. And so being intentional from a very early age to say, okay, by the time my kids are 10, they're going to be involved in things like their sports, dance, athletics, other things, like whatever. They're going to have things going on in their life, and I want to be there for them. I want to be present in that. So I have a finite period of time where maybe my balance is going to look different because I'm investing more in certain areas of my life that could put me in a position where I don't ever have to miss a basketball game. I don't ever have to miss a dance performance. I don't ever have to miss a football game or this or that, whatever they're involved in. I want to be at. I want to be at their plays. I want to be at whatever they're doing. But that doesn't happen on accident, right? You have to be intentional about creating that life that you want. Maybe talk about that for you of what does that look like, and what was your vision? What was this life that you felt like you wanted to create? And then how that fits in with the balance of what you do every day to get there.
Yeah. I think it was Alex Ramosi said something that stuck every 5 a.m. when I don't want to wake up. He said, your habits dictate where you go, not your goals or your feelings.
Yeah.
Don't let your feelings dictate your habits. So when it's 5 a.m. and I look at my arm like, gosh dang, I did not get enough sleep. It's like, that's a feeling. My habit will dictate.
Yeah.
So being intentional in the habits that you set and then holding yourself accountable to it without the feelings. That goes to me. I don't want to pick up the phone and cold call. I don't want to start this business. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So be intentional with the habits that you're creating, and then build. Yeah. I don't know if this is normal. Maybe you can tell me if this is for you. There has never been an income goal for me or a money goal for me. I wanted to get to the point where I could buy whatever I wanted and not think about it. That's probably the only thing that I've ever verbally said out loud. Like, I want to go.
It's a great way to, yeah.
I want to go to restaurants and not even look at the price of it. I just want to buy what I want to. That's probably the only monetary thing. For me, it's more about winning and having. You could hand me $1 billion right now, write the check, send it over here. I'd still show up to work at 8 o'clock because I enjoy what I do. And so it's that approach of intentionality that I want to do something that I love doing because I love doing, and that it no longer is something that I'm trying to get to a certain point or get to a certain income or get to a certain net worth. It's just going to be something that I love doing every single day. I'm intentional in building something that I enjoy, then there's never a finish line that I'm racing towards.
Yes.
And so being super aware, and I mean, it's not to say there's days that I'll not hate my job. There's days that I hate my job. Everyone has those days. But on a general basis, I really do like what I do. I like who I work with. And so being intentional in what I'm building and make sure that never changes is really important to me. My wife and 2-year-old were inside my office for 25 minutes, 30 minutes today. Just surprised, jumped by like our podcast moves. So I had time. And so I just got to sit there. All my employees know him. He ran into my assistant's office and got candy and gave her a hug. And so it's just created this sphere where work and life have kind of meshed together. But there's going to be a phase in life, just like you. My son is 6 and just starting sports.
Yeah.
Never want to miss a game. Want to make sure I'm at practice as much as I can. Want to be able to travel for him when that time comes if he elects to do that and wants to do that. And so understand that now's a day I can work 60 hours a week. I enjoy it. My wife's okay with it. And our kids don't feel it because of the hours that I work when I decide to work. So being intentional what I'm creating now, making sure I completely enjoy it, but also knowing that there isn't a finish line for me in my job. And I actually think that's really healthy for me. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but that's really healthy for me because I'd do this until the day I died.
Love it. Yeah, people don't decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures, right?
100%.
Okay, love it. Well, thank you for being here with us. This has been awesome.
Yeah,
and I think at some point we're going to have to do a follow-up because I feel like we could dive deeper into some of these topics. And so we'll have to have you back another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Braiden.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.